On January 12, 2024, an anonymous user would post a zip folder on a forum board with the ominous message, "Climb the Green Mountain Trail." Inside said folder was a .exe file, containing a fan-made Sonic the Hedgehog game, but even a cursory glance would tell you it was a much darker game, with a palpable atmosphere, and a hidden story dark enough to make the most grizzled of fans shudder. All of this and more. This is Green Mountain, the darkest Sonic game ever made. Hi, my name's Peter, and I talk about strange, obscure, and underrated video games all the time on my channel. So go ahead and subscribe, leave a thumbs up on the video, and check out my Patreon page for exclusive bonus content, private insights, or if you just want to support me. Because the Jawcoin tier patrons get their names featured in the video, because they're the ones who support me the most. Sonic is no stranger to horror content, and arguably the most famous example is Sonic.exe, a creepypasta written in the early 2010s by someone who shall not be named. The fan game, based on the story made by Mist Crimson, sparked a gargantuan interest in Sonic as a brand's love affair with horror. You've certainly seen at least one of these spooky Sonic images before. Sonic.exe's influence has reached so far that it's inspired innumerable sequel stories and fan games, ranging from ROM hacks with original Genesis titles to original games made in proprietary engines with custom assets. Many of these games have some serious effort put into them, featuring voice acting, multiple endings, even difficulty options. A far cry from the humble origins of Mist Crimson's inspired title. But, at least to me, there's a major problem I have with these .exe games, as they are dubbed. They're all kind of the same. The basic structure of the original Sonic.exe story and the game is that Sonic gets possessed by some kind of evil entity and kills all of his friends in the game. You sequentially play as characters from the games, usually Tails, Knuckles, and Eggman in that order, with each character dying at Sonic's hand in some way. Basic gameplay is just run to the right and wait for the scary moments to happen, with very few games having any trace of the platforming or fun that the original Sonic games had. There's a lot more to it than that, I'm oversimplifying, and different creators have their own unique flares, and the medium has evolved in some very impressive ways, but there are far more boring, uninteresting games filled with very tepid jump scares that just aren't scary. I don't intend to trample on anyone's enjoyment for the genre or anyone's creations. There are exceptions and value to find here, but there's only so many times I can stomach seeing a spooky Sonic with black eyes killing all of his friends. If you like this, then I'm glad. It's just not interesting for me. I massively prefer the kind of horror where you can get inside your own head. Something more skewed towards atmosphere, mystery, something that can get under your skin. My prayers went unanswered. Until... Climb the Green Mountain Trail. Sonic Fan Game Headquarters is a website that is entirely defined by its name. There are countless different games hosted here of varying quality, but in early January of this year, the bustling community of SFGH was floored. User _Gurn Mound Sonic with... damn it, hold on. Gurn Mound Sonic uploaded a zip file to the project section with the simple tagline, and has left no other comments or had no further activity since then. I thought about contacting him, but many others have tried and failed, so I'll leave them alone for now. The created thread was filled with users asking many questions about the eerie nature of the game, but as expected, there weren't any replies, so I'll have to download the game for myself and see. Normally, I wouldn't recommend you downloading .exe files online like this, but I can handle it. It's what I do to provide you all with a good video to watch. No title screen, no introduction, nothing like that. We're just a very strange looking Sonic in a very strange looking modification of Green Hill Zone. Everything is so overexposed, creating this wildly bright, hazy environment that's hard to look at. If there are no enemies present, no loops to run through, those fun little secrets in the original game have all been removed, making this Green Hill Zone a very, very lonely and ominous place to be in, amplified by this blood-curdling, distorted, warped track. I don't know if it's an original composition or a deep-fried version of a Sonic tune, but whatever it is, it kept me on edge the entire time. Every step I took to the right, I was expecting something to pop out, some kind of twist or shocking moment. But I did find this out. There's fall damage in this game. If there was any sign there's something wrong with Sonic, it's taking fall damage. Traversing forward would force you to see that Green Hill Zone has become far more vertical than before. We gradually begin to scale up and up, the jumps becoming more challenging and death-defying, with some outright leaps of faith needed to continue upwards. It's so alien to have an actual platforming challenge in a Sonic horror game, when they're so often devoid of that main gameplay style that made Sonic a popular franchise to begin with. I have a lot of respect for these fan game creators, but a lot of the time, you just get a single straight path with no deviations whatsoever. It's refreshing to play this game and be reminded of what actual Sonic games are like. Once we get to the very top of the mountain, we meet this. A heavily disfigured Sonic missing his entire face is standing there. Until he isn't when he attacks you for a true blue boss fight. How cool is that? Despite kind of looking like you, his sprites are largely custom. His jumping is entirely distinct from your player Sonics. The fight here kind of plays out like a mirror match, where you have all the same moves, but it's impossible for you to lose. This corrupted Sonic deals damage, but you seem to have infinite health. All you need to do is run to the edge of the screen and jump a couple times to beat him. And when you do, your reward is nothing. You're stuck on the screen with nowhere to go, seemingly soft-locked. Let's get acquainted with our new surroundings, since we're stuck here forever. See these statues over here? They seem similar enough to the traditional Sonic totems featured in Green Hill Zone, but different enough to stand out. Some people online, mainly Lemon Blues on Twitter, pointed out that these totems resemble Haniwa, ancient Japanese clay statues that were popular around the 3rd century to mark burial sites in honor of the fallen, which adds some potential symbolism to this scene. Many would be inclined to reset or outright turn off the game after a whole 2 minutes of complete silence and nothing new happening, but the patient are rewarded by Sonic's jaw falling off, as well as the world slowly becoming darker and darker. The ground is gone, the sky dims, until it's just you. More and more of Sonic rots away until he resembles the boss fight we just had. So, what the hell was that all about? Let's try and piece together what's happening. Sonic has to climb the Green Mountain, an area greatly resembling Green Hill Zone, for an unknown reason. He fights a creature that looks like a rotten, disfigured version of himself, and when he wins, he seemingly turns into that thing he just fought. What does that mean? Well, aside from it being just a spooky visual, it could hint at something cyclical, some kind of in-game repetition of time. Every time Sonic defeats this creature, he somehow becomes it, and then comes back to deal with himself. But really, the atmosphere was the star of the show. Super chilling, lonely, and laid back. Something I'm a lot more receptive to than the typical blood-soaked landscapes of Sonic.exe fame. It is a very brief game, lasting around 10 minutes at most. But its length is not unearned, and its stay is never taxing. Except for that part where you have to run out the timer and wait for the game to be over. That was unnecessary. I could have used those 2 minutes to check an eBay listing or something. It absolutely takes inspiration from another unnerving horror game, but more on that later. But what did others think of it? Naturally, this game being shadow dropped one day in January is quite the shock, and people acted quite appropriately. It came out in 2024, when people have become very accustomed to these types of games being more than meets the eye, so when they start digging into the files, as they should, they found some interesting stuff. People discovered that the entire game was made on GameMaker, which really shocked me. The physics and level design fooled me thoroughly, and I thought this was a ROM hack, until I remembered you played this game via exe file. Then I felt like an idiot. People began to use a tool to open up Undertale to open up this game, since it's on the same software. The contents inside might disturb you. Some of the names for sprites and tile sets are unusual, to say the least. We left it in the car. Have you talked to her? Green Mountain is not far. No, but I need to mark something. Did you bring the shovel? None of these names match their associated images, but that's because it has an entirely different focus. It's trying to tell a story through in-game files. Bashybush has attempted to sew all these into a coherent paragraph. We've been trekking this route for couldn't you do it now? You will get there sooner than later. Yep, speaking of, how far is it? Green Mountain is not far. Okay, you're here. Did you bring the shovel? No, we left it in the car. It's in the pack. Have you talked to her? Not really. Why not? I don't want to talk. Why? I'm exhausted as it is. I'll set stuff at the clearing. Do you already need to go? No, but I need to mark something. Trying to stitch the names together, we can piece together a story. It clearly follows two people, identities unknown, heading to the Green Mountain, either describing the exact place in-game, like they're inside this twisted version of Sonic, or Green Mountain is a representation of a physical location elsewhere. They have to scale this mountain, mark a clearing, do something with a shovel, and talk to her. If you remember the Haniwa totems from earlier, the scenario should sound familiar to you. People traveling somewhere with a shovel. What exactly does all of this mean? Well, we've hit a bit of a wall. But what about analyzing the music? Analyzing the in-game soundtrack, Dusky Y pointed out that the track that plays over the Game Over section has something called DTMF, or Dual Tone Multi-Frequency inside, which is the sounds each number makes when you press them on your phone, and they generate very specific hertz. What can be deciphered from the Game Over theme are DTMF's 811. This is critically important because 811 has a very specific meaning. It's a number you call before you dig in the ground in America. What that means is when you plan to dig, you need to call that number to talk to someone who can tell you if you're about to dig into an area with a power line so you don't knock out someone's power, or a gas line so you don't explode. But knowing that, we can really start to piece together what's going on. The two characters mentioned in the file names are evidently going to be digging something, since there are so many references to it, but we might finally know what they plan to dig for: burying a body. Think about it. Is there any more classic symbol of this than two guys bringing a shovel to mark a location from other people than to bury a body? But whose body's being buried? Is it this she character mentioned? Probably not, since they mentioned talking to her, and I have reason to suspect the person being buried is dead. Well, I'm pretty sure they're not burying a live person, at least. It is kind of odd that a number you're meant to call before digging in the ground is being mentioned in a story that might feature someone burying a dead body, something you wouldn't want people to know about. But they do talk about having to mark a place specifically, so I'm not entirely convinced these two guys are digging someone up. Mind you, everything is so ambiguous that you can easily interpret events entirely differently. But there's one more thing I haven't told you yet. There's an image file hidden in here, and it's called Returnal. What it actually depicts, I don't even know. I tried to alter the exposure in Photoshop, but even that was inconclusive. Some kind of vague blue shape surrounded by total blackness and gray. It almost looks JPEG compressed. Corrupted, not of this world. It gives me serious Mario image vibes. There's something uniquely macabre and uncanny about this vague shape. It feels threatening, even though I can't describe why. It feels like I caught something that doesn't belong on this plane of existence on a nature trail cam. It's probably my favorite thing about this entire project, which feels strange to say, but it's a seriously evocative photo, or illustration. I don't even know what it is, honestly. Well, people have tried to interpret what it is, and most people agree that it's Sonic. A very mutilated and dilapidated Sonic, but Sonic. Maybe, just maybe, this Sonic is the representation of the body being buried. These two people doing the task could perhaps be Sonic himself in the beginning, the one you play as. Though I'm not sure if it would be right to assume that these two people are meant to be just Sonic. Like, symbolically, they're already trekking the Green Mountain, but I don't know. But Sonic's journey to trek the Green Mountain does match quite well with the two guys going to the same mountain. So we know why Sonic is climbing the Green Mountain. It's what the guys did to bury the body. It's pretty impressive, actually, platforming a mountain while hauling a body and tools. Good for them. But the warped Sonic at the top is a problem. Well, The image is called Returnal, and it's hard to see, but I think it does resemble the rotting Sonic quite a lot, so I theorize that the body being buried has come back to life. There are a lot of routes the story can take, but it's only started this year. People have been quite active trying to decipher the meaning, since the creator of this game has been very tight-lipped. There were several videos talking about this game and the deeper alternate reality game elements it clearly has, but people quickly hit a dead end. There was only so much we can theorize and talk about, and we weren't given any new material. It seemed like Green Mountain was fated to be forgotten in the sands of time, but I haven't been entirely truthful with everyone. I said that the creator went completely radio silent, but that was a lie. They were actually active on the website on August 11th, 2024. Not that long ago from this upload date. In their activity, they posted the sequel to Green Mountain. This is news to you, then it's for a good reason. I believe this was posted on the same forum as the original, but it was taken down. I'm not sure if the author took it down, or the websites, or the mods, but all that matters is that people were able to download it in time and mirror it. So I've got the files right here, safe and sound. Booting it up, we see the scariest thing so far. Marble Zone. I hate that damn stage. The music is especially minimal. Kind of sounds like the ocean. Instead of progressing to the right and up a mountain, we have to travel down, down, down. What was that? Something that greatly resembles Sonic, but coated in black, sometimes pops up around the screen, but never long enough for us to get a proper view of him. What's up with this blackboard? I don't know if there's any meaning to be deciphered from this, like if they're coordinates to somewhere or not, but this is a custom asset. It was deliberately placed here. Just above is an invisible goalpost where we can actually move on to another level, which feels very alien for a game like this. We skip straight from Marble Zone to what looks like a sun-spotted Scrap Brain Zone, with a far greater emphasis on platforming. There are a lot of sections where you need to build momentum to progress, but it's Sonic 1 momentum, so we can't spin dash, which really sucks on ice. There's moving platforms and... damn it! I hate these things. There's a lot of ways you can instantly die in this level. I guess we know who made this game. It was Dimps. This level, called Leave, the first level is called Route, forgot to mention that, is kind of non-linear in a way, because there are actually some enemies to defeat, but not in the way anyone would expect. They can't really fight back, just helplessly stumble as you stomp them into scrap, with more DTMF tones, presumably the 811 number. There are 3 to 4 of these enemies, and I think you have to take at least some of them out in any order. Coverage of the sequel game is kind of limited because of how little buzz it has comparatively, so some more experimentation with this is in order. Taking down these badniks feels morbid. Like we're committing a crime and genuinely killing these creatures in front of structures that look like houses. Is Sonic killing these things supposed to represent some kind of spree killing? This level is honestly kind of a pain in the ass. There are a lot of seeming dead ends and full stops and backtracking moments. It doesn't really feel fun to puzzle together where to go. But there is an endpoint to reach. Good luck finding it though. Once we reach this, object, Sonic stops and we can't control him. Something that looks like a bus stop pole appears by it. We're in a white void, and then we get another game over. I've seen some people suggest that this scene could represent a hospital, like the lamppost is an IV unit and this thing is a bed, but it could honestly be anything since it's so vague. Perhaps the files will tell us more. These file names are especially vague. There are a lot of names that make it sound like a character is on the look for someone very specific, like an investigation. There are a lot of descriptions given from seemingly multiple different people. Phrases like, not the correct height, and his hair was a mess. Kind of feel like a police investigation asking bystanders or even potential suspects in a case. Someone named David is mentioned, with someone saying he should apparently know better. If we follow up from the previous game, featuring 2 characters burying a body, Perhaps David is one of the people responsible, and there's an ongoing investigation surrounding him. No traces at scene is definitely evocative. Cardigan could be a witness description of one of the perpetrators' attire. The other walked with a limp is most likely a description of David's accomplice. What really surprised me is this phrase: he turned 9 yesterday. I highly doubt David or his accomplice were burying bodies at 9 years old, and you wouldn't say a dead body would turn 9 since they're dead. So perhaps this 9-year-old boy is a new character, we just don't know how he fits into everything. Turns out, these are actually labeled houses in the files, with some of the names indicating someone asked about her, likely the same her as mentioned before. Perhaps the badniks represent people being questioned by police? I don't know if Sonic killing them means anything for the story though. We still don't know who the victim really was. We don't know the sex, the age, everything is just so abstract. We're getting a clearer picture of the 2 guys who buried the body in the Green Mountain though, but again, we don't know why, or even if they're responsible for killing that person before they buried them. The hypothetical police and witnesses seem to assume so, because that would explain this David character being expected to know better. Knowing better as in not killing someone and getting caught by a witness, I guess. What is this inky Sonic following us? Is it a witness to the Green Mountain incident? Is David some kind of murderer? We're only just now beginning to see the story unfold. But I've hit something of a dead end here again, and the creator hasn't had any activity, this time for real. Given how long it took for another game to come out with more info, we're going to have to wait for more info to come out, if any does at all. I would be remiss not to mention the huge inspirations behind this project. The infamous Mario game, The/Coronation Day, was very evidently an inspiration, because it follows a lot of similar beats. The game world missing enemies and being very empty and atmospheric, the way the game was just dropped in a fan game thread with no explanation, the hidden stuff in the files, it's all there. I would argue the disfigured version of the characters even match what was going on with Peach, but there's also some Mario DNA in it, like the old ARG that I covered and kind of helped solve, sorta. The creepy image you find in the files definitely does give the same vibes as this image, and I can only hope it gets solved like this one did. Fans have been stuck since this moment, and since its initial boom of interest early this year, activity and theorizing has been quiet. It seems like we might have to wait for a new discovery to be found by a dedicated fan, or until the creator reveals his hand with more info. Green Mountain, as fans have dubbed it, is one of the most promising Sonic ARGs, horror projects, creepypastas, whatever you want to call it. It's captured mine and many others' imagination with its intriguing premise, chilling presentation. It stands head and shoulders above so many of its compatriots for taking notes from the most famous Mario horror projects online and standing out from the .exe crowd. There's a focus on platforming, but also an exploration and digging deep into the files to find out the true narrative at play, something we can interact with and perhaps even influence. Knowing me, I definitely missed a clue or two, but for now, most people have run with the idea that there's 2 guys out there killing people and burying them, and if we take this image's name literally, one of these victims might have come back. But for what purpose? Well, we might just have to wait and find out. But perhaps the very answer was staring us in the face the whole time, from the .exe icon itself. Let me know if you're interested in having me cover more information as it comes out. But until then, have a lovely rest of your day.